4 years into his successful self-titled show, Matt Brown has interviewed hundreds of local and international entrepreneurs and business experts for his online podcast. Now, drawing inspiration from the many lessons he learned through this journey, Matt finally decided to pen down a book titled Your Inner Game, 12 Principles for High-Impact Entrepreneurs. The principles are an effort to help you make those important decisions, as well as to propel you through seemingly unthinkable and insurmountable challenges in both personal and business adventures. Well, Matt is here in studio to share with us some of the principles that he has in this offering. Matt, it's great to have you here on the show. Thank you for coming.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.
The title, Your Inner Game. There's a real interesting concept behind this title. Won't you just take us through that?
Yeah, sure. So what I've discovered after 4.5 years of interviewing high-impact human beings, so billionaires on 4 continents, CEOs of the most successful companies in the world, is that they apply a different inner game to the outer game of business. And so it's all about, you mentioned the word decisions, and decisions really are your ultimate power. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your race is, what your creed is, what your financial status is. When you decide something, everything manifests as a result of how you decide. But how do you decide when you're under pressure? How do you decide when you're suffering from something called imposter syndrome? How do you decide when you have a fear of failure? And so these are very human emotions. And so it's really about how do you create a new operating system of the mind that allows you to make the best decisions for you as an entrepreneur, as a person who aspires to achieve more in their lives.
That all sounds great, but where do we start? You know, in your experience, where do you think people find that center, that thing that says to them, okay, this is what I want to achieve, this is how I want to achieve it, but where's my starting point?
Yeah, you start with why. So why do you want the thing that you want? If you want R1 million, then why do you want that? You know, and because, you know, if you have a strong enough why, you can bear almost any how. And so a lot of people battle with that. They don't know what motivates them. And so I have a very simple way that you can apply a kind of a practice to get to a possible truth for you. And that is this. What book are you writing in 12 months' time? And what's the title of the book?
Wow.
What does it say? What's the byline? And what are you trying? What's the story that you want to express? Because ultimately, the why has got to come from a place that is from inside of you. It's about recognizing that you are different to the other 7 billion people on this planet. And when you find out what that point of difference is, and you connect that point of difference to the world in such a way that it creates value, you can create a massive fortune for yourself in whichever way you decide. But you have to know why, because getting to an outcome, a success, a destination, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about the journey of becoming something more than you were the day before.
Let's talk about certain blocks, Matt. You know, there's certain mental blocks that exist, physical blocks that exist, psychological blocks that exist that can really hinder a person from, you know, finding that inner game and just really digging deep. How do we wrestle those? How do we change our thinking, how we speak to ourselves and how we think of ourselves?
Yeah. So we all have this thing called fear. I'm fearful sitting here being interviewed by you right now with a national audience. And that's okay. And everyone that lives on this planet deals with this thing called fear. It's very easy to think that highly successful people are fearless. Take Elon Musk, for instance. There's actually a video on YouTube you can find where he says that he fears everything every day. Wow. Like he deals with this thing called fear. So it's not about, you know, living your life fearlessly. You know, that's not possible. But it's about fearing less. And it's one of the principles that I write about in my book. So how do you fear less? And the idea is to recognize that you get 2 types of people. The first type of person lets their fear define them.
Yes.
And we all know people like that. You know, they're scared to take chances. They're making excuses for why they can't have the things that they want in their lives. You have someone like that in mind, right?
Yeah.
And so the second type of person is where, like Elon Musk and other high-performance people that I've interviewed, is where they let their fear push them forward. Because the truth about fear is that it creates emotion. And emotions typically lie to you, right? They'll create a story, a narrative in your head about why you can't have the things that you want in your life. I did a talk to a school yesterday, about 550 kids, Redham High School, and I was asked about this idea of fear. And so it really is recognizing that it's only you that stops you. There's nothing else. And when you understand that and you become self-aware, you unlock a new consciousness that allows you to truly believe that you can achieve more than what you think is possible. And that's what this book fundamentally is about, Your Inner Game, where it's about 12 stories that were recounted to me, the best stories that have been told to me over the last 4 years. And it's very simply a book about human potential. Yes, I wrote the book, but it's actually got very little to do with me. There's obviously, my story in it, but it's really a book about you, and it's a book about the cameraman there and everybody else that's listening and watching this show right now, because you are just like me. I am just like every other billionaire that I know, and it took this journey of curiousness by asking questions, just like you're asking me right now, to recognize that there is no difference between a billionaire and a man from Soweto with a dream. The only difference is about your inner game and what you choose to believe is possible and how you approach this external world around you.
I'm completely sold. I feel like you wrote this book for me. Matt, let's talk about perhaps a common thread that you've noticed or that you've seen amongst these billionaires that you talk to, amongst these high impact people that you interact with. What would you say is one thing that really stands out for you about them?
Great question. So at the end of every episode, I ask, why do you do what you do? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Basically, I'm trying to understand what motivates highly successful people. And we've done over 200 podcasts now, and I've never had a single answer that had anything to do with material gain. It had nothing to do with the money in the bank, the sports cars, the big houses, the status. Yes, they're nice byproducts, but that's not what motivates highly successful people. What motivates them, very simply, is a need to contribute to humanity and the world around them. And that's the thing, because when you recognize that you're only here for a finite period of time, and so they recognize that and say every day counts. And they also recognize that time is their most valuable resource. But when you have such a finite resource, what are you going to do? Are you going to chase money in a bank, or are you going to chase contribution? I often get asked by youngsters at schools, like, how do I become a billionaire? And it's like, it's the wrong question. It's like, how can you make a difference to 1 billion people?
Wow.
And if you do that, $1 for every person, you'll become a billionaire. But it's all about contribution, and that's the common theme.
Wow, Matt, thank you so much. We could chat all morning long. Thank you so much for this amazing book. I can't wait to really read it and to learn some of these principles that will certainly propel me to greater heights. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.